Hello everybody, my name is Stormy RCHD. Happy 7th anniversary to Tears Fade. It's crazy to think that 7 years ago was a completely different world than what we are in now. And especially so concerning the growth that not only I have gone through personally, but the growth of, where I started with doing this kind of stuff to now. And I wanted to take today's video to really just, talk about it and, reminisce on, the kind of the process of making Tears Fade. Today is all about Tears Fade, right? As, today is the anniversary. So let's start with, the original album, right? The original Tears Fade. Originally speaking, when I was releasing music, the first two tracks were actually, Tears Fade and then, When I Cry. I can never get that shit out of my head. So, those were the two first tracks, right? And, I did those two, because, again, I'm not gonna go really in depth of talking about, what really sparked the creation of Tears Fade. I am going to kind of, sort of talk about, more, the process of making it. Just to kind of, put it out there. A lot of really bad shit happened, and I did make a, I made a YouTube, or there should be a YouTube post by now, talking about, maybe just a more brief version of, what this video is going to be if you want the TLDR, essentially. But 2019 was really just overall a really shitty year, in terms of my personal life, and Tears Fade, the way that I see it, is a reflection of that. Well, it was more so for a specific event, I would say, as to, what really led to the creation of Tears Fade. But Tears Fade, in my opinion, honestly, overall represents the year as a whole. And it's, looking back on it now, right, obviously, I was still so very new to the whole concept. And, there was a lot of work that I needed to do personally, right, because, I was very much... I was still very novice, I would say. I can't even say novice. I was a very beginner person. And to the point where, I wrote the songs first, found a beat after, and then didn't really care if it fit. Which is, I think, why Tears Fade, I think, is its biggest weakness. That in the writing isn't what I would, be up to my par right now. Even right now, I'm experimenting with different concepts, so... It's there's always been an evolution, right? Now, Tears Fade itself was made in a single setting to really emphasize what I mean by, there wasn't as much thought put into music back then as there is now. Tears Fade was done in an entire setting. I'm not proud of it. Although, I will say, it did have way more thought put into it than something like Return to the Wild. I mean, I'll say it. Though, but it's because it's so hard to talk about Tears Fade without talking about what caused it to be made. But I don't want to talk about what caused it to be made. Again, there was a lot of personal stuff. It was trying to separate, because I wanted it to feel like it wasn't so connected personally to my life. And... it was very hard to do that because it still ended up becoming that. And so I tried to interject some level of a story in there to try to be hey, this is completely different from my life. Whoa. But in reality, that wasn't the case whatsoever. So, and I really tried to push more for that with Tears Gone. But Tears Fade, it was very, very much obvious. But I don't know. And then I'll have to mention it. If there was a worse downgraded version of that somehow, I would say it was Tears Fade Deluxe Edition, quote unquote. I don't even, honestly, I don't even know what the fuck I was even doing with Tears Fade Deluxe Edition. I think I just wanted to redo it for my birthday and try to make it sound better, and it didn't at all. It sounded so much worse. And again, I will sit here and I will fucking say it until the day I die. anything that I did while I was at college was bad. To be fair, there's some gold amongst all the shit, okay? And I can't say it was all shit. But, like, I very quickly found out that trying to work on what I loved doing when I had to be in that place, that sort of environment, it just didn't work. So, and then COVID-19 happened, and then we all got locked inside. Whoa. And this is when I was really able to more hone into an environment and work on stuff that I really, really liked, because I didn't have to worry about college, right? And again, I want to make it clear, I never liked school, so I didn't stay in college. I know I'm a college dropout. I know I'm cooked. No, because when the whole world went into lockdown, of course we're all forced to stay inside. People like me who are always just homebodies anyway, who never really like to go out. I'm such a horrible introvert. I'm an introvert with extrovert qualities. Like, if I'm going to a place that, like, I know all people there, like, I'm a lot more comfortable. But if I'm going to a place that, like, I don't really know or anything like that, I'm just a complete fucking introvert, dude. It's so bad. So, for those like me, like being able to be home all the time, especially because I like to play a lot of video games and stuff like that, I was able to work on a lot of stuff. It wasn't the worst thing possible. Of course, not being able to see friends and socialize, obviously that does affect everybody. As humans, one of our biggest things is, social, being able to socialize, with other people, and of course that affected everybody in a lot of ways. There were a lot of people who didn't really take it as well, right? The pandemic really hit a lot of people really hard, not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and so when I was at home, and I was like, man, I really want to celebrate the Tears Fade, with a much more different perspective on things, especially now given what's going on now. And at the same time, too, I was already working on the next album, which was Tears Gone. And that itself was beginning to have influences from, what was going on in the world and stuff like that. But it really wasn't until Mentality where it really was, you could really tell, right? So that's when Tears Fade Anniversary happened. And for all purposes, it's not the worst. Like, I would probably say, like, Bad Nights is probably the most listenable thing there. Again, this is coming from the fact that I have grown so much. My style and how I do my music has changed so much that a lot of stuff from that first year, I'm obviously not going to be in major favor of because of that, right? And so when it comes to Anniversary, I think it's much better quality. I took a lot more time with it. Not as much time as, like, say, for instance, like, Tears Gone, or I don't even know if I want to say Tears Gone, like something like Mentality or Glad and Team Mentality, right? Where these were long projects. Like, these, I was working on those for months. A lot more time went into those. So I can't really say the same thing about Tears Gone and Tears Fade Anniversary. Hell, even fucking the original Tears Fade, because that shit was done in like a single afternoon. But again, it was a very important stepping stone, because not only was that the remake album for Tears Fade, but that's when Faded became a thing. Because I wasn't actually sure at first if I wanted to have Tears Fade be under Faded, because the original version wasn't. But I ultimately decided, like, yeah, I'm just going to have it be Faded, Tears Fade, right? And then, of course, we got Tears Gone, and then, Mentality, stuff like that. So the next time I would touch Tears Fade, or really anything tied to it, would be with Glad and Team Mentality, where I was able to really hone it in. Because what Glad and Team Mentality is not only is it meant to be, like, a celebration of Faded music, like, all the stuff with Faded. Because what I originally wanted to do was have every aspect of Faded music in the album. It really was meant to be this huge celebration of, Faded music, right? But ultimately, like, a lot of things just could not come to pass. A lot of the beats that I used, I can't get anymore. I mean, I could, but it would require, trying to use things that kind of separate vocals and instrumentals. And half of those by now have become AI, and that is where, like, it becomes blurred, right? Because it's like, oh, I mean, I produced this, like, my vocals are being removed from it so I can put new vocals over it. But at the same time, it's like I use the AI to do it. It's such a weird gray area, because it's like, do I do it? But if I do it, do I come with the risk of being like, oh shit, I kind of feel like shitty for it? But it's like, I wouldn't be able to recapture that original spirit. Like, Depression would be one of those tracks that I would actually, like, think about doing it with if I ever wanted to do it, right? Because, Depression metal version exists now to kind of make up for that. If I wanted to redo the original version, because I would prefer to do the original version if I ever wanted to do something like that. But I just, like, use it to just remove my vocals, leave the instrumentals, and then I could redo my vocals over it. Do I still feel shitty about that? All right. Or do I just, like I did with metal version, just do an entirely new version, just so where I can go back to do it if I wanted to, right? So with Glad Into Mentality, it was not just a celebration, but to kind of, like, the Faded albums are canonical to the Faded story, with that, I'm probably going to return to doing the transmissions, because those, to me, were probably the easier form to do it, because trying to write the entire complex-ass fucking story is just, it's too much for my baby brain. Especially because I'm writing the complete story for that, and trying to do those completely, because, when you write in the overall arc for this, overall portion for this arc, this event, especially if you have an event far in the future, you have to have an event, especially if you want to have, like, say, this event here tie into this event here, you have to make sure that will fit into that, and then you change a little bit of things here, then you have to go back and change that to that. Curse being a writer. But no, the Faded albums are canonical to the Faded story. So the idea with Glad Into Mentality was to really bring it all together, and into one big album that I felt like all the songs represented the arc of of Tyler Gladden team there, and unfortunately there was only 2 songs I could do for Bad Nights for Tears Fade, and that being Bad Nights and Tears Fade, and that gave those completely new versions, because I wasn't gonna go back and trying to do it on the old beats. I tried, okay? I just want to make it clear that I did try. I really did try. But it's just like, it was just so, I couldn't do it. The way that I wrote back then with the beat, and I just couldn't do it for the life of me. So I ended up being like, okay, I still want Tears Fade representation in this album. What do I do? And that is where I wrote the new versions of Bad Nights and Tears Fade. I effectively expanded them, and I chose new beats to represent that expansion. And honestly, I really am happy with how they turned out, right? Because what I really tried to do was capture the spirit of the originals while still having new material in there to make it still feel like it's the same song. So that's what I did with Bad Nights and Tears Fade and Glad Into Mentality. There were some other songs in there too that had new sections written for them that would be primarily all my vocals. Colder Nights is one of those songs. Unironically, I think Colder Nights is the only other song in the entire thing that I had to rewrite to, so it would be all my vocals. So why I mentioned this specifically, especially with Tears Fade and Bad Nights, Glad Into Mentality version, is because let's talk about what I'm going to be doing for Faded. So last year, I had mentioned that I was going to be working on a brand new album. Now, what happened to that album? Honestly, I'm going to be pretty blunt. I scrapped it. A lot of it comes down to the fact that it really felt like it was just complaining in an album, right? And to me, specifically, I didn't like that. I didn't like that effectively, it was just like, oh, this upsets me so much, or oh, grr, curse this, stuff like that. It didn't, to me, feel like it was accomplishing anything besides just whining in an album, right? And for what the album was supposed to be, I felt like not only had I strayed from that, I just didn't like the overall I liked the overall concept, didn't like the execution. So I was like, ah, fuck it, throw it out. And I was like, well, shit, there's a couple of really good things here and there. And I, especially the artwork, I didn't want to get rid of the artwork concept, the album design, because I really liked it. So I was like, oh shit, well, what do? I just repurposed it. And so we're getting Tears Fade Relived or Tears Fade Resurgence. I haven't decided on the subtitle yet. And what this is effectively going to be is going to be the entire album of Tears Fade. You know, you had your Bad Nights, Tears Fade, When I Cry, Proud to Let You Down, Moving On. Oh god, there's one more. Fuck, I can't remember. There's Bad Nights, Tears Fade, When I Cry, Proud to Let You Down, Moving On. It's in there somewhere. It's in my mind. But again, it's the original album. But I'm going to be giving the rest of the album the same treatment that I did with Bad Nights and Tears Fade in Glad Mentality. Pretty much what it is. And I did intend to have one of those tracks released today for the anniversary. Because I was like, oh shit, since I'm working on it, want to release something for the anniversary. But my standards and my own, because especially when I do music, right, what I try to aim for is, can I listen to it, as well? Like, would I be able to listen to it as well alongside everyone else? And I had it complete, but for some reason, especially when it came to my vocals, it just sounded so off. It sounded so off, and I just could not. I was like, nope. I gotta throw it back in the oven. So I had to redo that entire song, on top of maybe having to go back and do some of the other ones that I had already worked on. Again, it was gonna be Bad Nights. Bad Nights was it's the easiest one for me to do, to start out, to be like, hey, here's one that I can release now, and then the rest will come later. But now I have to go back and redo that one, and all the other songs I kind of worked on bits and pieces of. So I'm like, oh shit. Well, now I feel like I have to completely start over again, because I was like, shit. Because the thing is I'm trying to use my new mic for this, but it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that maybe it's just the new mic. So I had to go back and be like, okay, no. So, yeah, it's not like it's going to take me a while, especially with like Tears Fade and Bad Nights. Those two I've already have written. I already have the beats for them. I just got to go and do those two. Are going to be perfectly fine. It's just the other ones, because I have to write. See, what I'm aiming for with this is to be able to have the songs still feel like the songs that released 7 years ago. You can still tell it's the same song, but add onto it in a way that enhances them and makes them feel like much more fleshed out. There's more meat on the bone for the songs, right? Now, again, some of them are going to be difficult because there's going to be a lot of changes that have to be made, and I understand that. I am fully aware that some songs, it's going to feel like such a drastic fucking change. But it's to be able to to bring what I feel like Tears Fade could be, right? And that is essentially the goal with this. So, I don't know when it's going to be out, considering that I have to kind of effectively start over. I had an idea in my mind, but that's looking like it may potentially be changed. But I mean, if production goes pretty good, all things considered, then maybe we can push it. I can push it for what I originally wanted it to be out for, but who knows? We'll see. But all in all, it's crazy to feel so old, knowing that, my first ever album released fucking 7 years ago. The world was so different. Like, it's so bizarre to me, because time has never felt like it's moving faster. And especially with the world as it is right now, so divided, and it's, I don't know, when I look on it, and to look at Tears Fade and not only see where I began effectively to where I am now, because I moved from, the place I had before making Tears Fade into the place I was at when I made Tears Fade, and effectively a part of Tears Gone. Then I moved into where Tears Gone was finished, and then when Glad Into Mentality was done, to, not being able to effectively do content for an entire fucking 2 years. Aside from just small things, to where I am now, where I can work on stuff again. And I know that I was like, and I'm like, hey, I'm working on this stuff, but like, I feel like I have to mention it. It's super, like, again, I know I'm slow, and I'm trying, because it's like super weird for me, because I have to get back into that flow, right? Because like where I was before, the previous place, I could just do that all the live long day, and I felt really good doing it because I was so into it. I had the flow. And then I moved to a different place, wasn't able to touch anything for 2 whole years, and now I'm suddenly in a place where I can do it again. It feels weird, so I have to get back into the flow of things. I didn't want to release, things for Ascendum as slow as I have, because I wanted more time. I wanted Ascendum to be out faster. That was the idea, because to me, I was like, oh, this shouldn't be that hard, right? It's just looking at a select, nerdcore track list, remaking them, releasing them. That shouldn't be that hard, but here I am trying to figure everything out again. So it's weird, especially coming back around to Tears Fade and working on Tears Fade again. It feels like 7 years ago when I was working on Tears Fade in that upstairs bedroom on my old ass computer that barely could run anything on it. It's so weird. But in a world where things go around in a circle, we circle back to effectively starting over. So that's cool. So anyway, once more, happy 7th year anniversary to Tears Fade. It was the first step. It was a very, 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 very early beginner's first step, but it was an important step, and it was there where lessons had to be learned. I had to understand what I did good and what I did wrong or didn't do so good, build off of that. Tears Gone reflected that, learned from that, understood what I did right, what I did wrong. Then came Tears, Faded Mentality. Same thing with that, what I did right, what I did wrong, Glad Into Mentality. And of course I look back on Glad Into Mentality, and then that will go into Tears Fade. So, or Tears Fade Relived, Resurgence, whatever it is. So in a way, it always circles right back. So, I wanted to take this last little end segment here to be like, hey, yeah, stuff is coming, and I am working on a lot of stuff. I have the next Let's Play planned. I am currently going to be working on it. I have a couple other series ideas in the works as well. The Broken Script 2.0 got confirmed to be releasing in August. A lot of shit's coming out in August. So I will definitely, of course, be playing that when that drops. But I did want to cover the Broken Script. I think it's Blackout. I heard it's like, if you thought the Broken Script was cracked, like this is more cracked. Because it's like you really want to get your progression stuff done as fast as possible, because once the shit really gets going, I hear it's just absolute craziness. So that's the idea. So that stuff, of course, you get to make Let's Play. Music's gonna be coming out too. I am working on of course, Tears Fade Relived or Resurgence, working on Ascendum. I am working on one of the tracks right now. And I have a new idea cooking, because the whole second verse I had to write actually for myself, and I really like it. So that's what I meant when I mentioned experimenting. That's what I meant by experimenting. So A lot of cool stuff is on the way. Again, it's been like I've been kind of fumbling and stumbling and trying to find my way back, but ladies and gentlemen, we might be back. So, that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it. 7 years ago, Tears Fade released, and now here we are 7 years later, where I feel it's time to properly make Tears Fade into what it should be. So, good shit. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Mr. Marius HD. Of course, I'll be posting on the YouTube, with posts being like, hey, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. So, stay tuned for that. Anyway, see you guys later. All right, peace out. Peace.